out that he had these lobsters, you know, and he was getting lobsters. And he had a spot down along the Inverness that when the tide would fall, it was really, really clear. You could see the bottom. And he had a long pole with a piece of rope and a knot on the end of the pole. Rope and some knots. And he'd stick the pole down and the lobsters would bite on. And then he'd pull them in nice and slow. And he was getting these lobsters. So the fisheries, Ralph Watts probably. So they got onto that or whatever and made a visit. And they asked about these lobsters. Well, he said, a matter of fact, he says, I've got a bunch of them now. He says, and they're having a swim in the bathtub. And he says, I'll be taking them back down to the wharf and letting them go. He says, and for a swim out there. And he said, they just came back from a swim a couple of hours ago, but they need to go again, he says. So, and the fellow says, and he said, I just let them go for the swim in the salt water. And he says that I holler a few commands to them, he says, and they come back in and they get in the bucket and I take them home again. And the fellow says, you got to be joking. He says, I really would like to see this. Well, by geez, you come down to the wharf with me and I'll show you what goes on. So the wardens went down and he took the bucket and let the lobsters go in the shallows and out into the salt water, and the lobsters, God. So holy Moses, he says, that's pretty good. He says, okay, now let's see you call the lobsters back. What lobsters? He said.